Hey all, hello and welcome, Tony Bing here. For today's beginner's guide video we will be checking out another X-Men, and we have Bobby the Iceman Drake. You'll hear him say that very often if you choose to unlock him. Now he's a fantastic hero. He was reworked a few months ago, and in that rework he's been given a really solid ranged melee summon build, and on top of that he has a unique resource called Ice Armor, which really adds a lot of options to him as well. So fantastic hero. What we'll do for this video anyway is we'll have a look at his attributes, traits and resource, follow that up by checking out some of these costumes. We'll then have a quick look at his signature and ultimate, and finally we have 3 gameplay run throughs. The first one will be the range skills we'll show off, then we'll show off the melee skills, and finishing up we'll have a look at the summon skills. But first up here for this video, let's have a look at the attributes, traits and resource. So we start off with the offensive trait, and that would be Ice Mutation. So with this you gain 15% bonus damage to enemies that are chilled, and that's something we'll discuss later on. His archetype is Adept, and the 2 attributes that you'll gain the 4% damage from would be Durability and Energy. Now he doesn't really get much from an actual reduction in the cost of skills which Energy would provide, so I would probably recommend the Durability attribute for the extra health. For his defensive trait we have Ice Armor, so this has a 3% flat deflect chance. The archetype is Tough, and that's giving you a multiplier to both defense and deflect as well. For his resource, this is called Sub-Zero, but the actual resource itself is called Ice Armor, so that can be a bit confusing with his defensive trait being called that as well. But what this is, Ice Armor replaces your spirit, which you would normally have on other heroes. This is restored automatically when you're out of combat, and it negates 60%, which is pretty huge, of all incoming damage and absorbs the rest. Now you can actually have certain skills that can regenerate Ice Armor as you use them, and we'll see that when we look at the tooltips later on. Now in regards to something we've touched on a little bit, you can see that there's 3 tags here. We have Chill, Deep Freeze and Shatter. So various skills you have can chill the enemy, and what that does, it will slow their attack and movement speed by 40%. We can then also deep freeze enemies, and this would freeze enemies for 2 seconds. If the enemy's already chilled when you use a deep freeze skill, it actually freezes them for a whopping 4 seconds, and through talents we can actually increase that to 6 seconds. Now this will also restore a portion of your Ice Armor when you use a deep freeze power as well. Finally we have Shatter. So with this one you will do additional damage when you use a Shatter skill against frozen enemies. So frozen enemies would be ones that are affected by deep freeze. So the way it works is you'll start to chill the enemy. Once you chill them so much you can get to a point where they're frozen. Once they're frozen you then shatter them. So it's a really interesting mechanic, and it can lead to a lot of your skills doing an insane amount of damage, so I like that a lot. Now what we'll look at next anyway is we'll check out his costumes. He doesn't have many, but we'll have a look at them, and then following on from that we'll look at his signature and ultimate. For his default we have the modern look. So this is a look that really I'm used to from the Amazing Spider-Man and Friends, so this is pretty awesome. We then have Age of Apocalypse, which is a pretty mean looking costume, and I like to use this when I'm doing melee skills on him. Final costume, we have the all new X-Men one, and this is really quite different because you can see the proportions on him. He's much smaller, so I'm not a huge fan of this actual costume myself, but for actual readers of this particular comic arc I'm sure they will love this. But next up, let's have a look at the signature and ultimate. For the signature we have a great looking skill called Absolute Zero. So with this he'll create an ice board of sorts, and he spins all the way around the enemy, and you can actually move while doing this as well. So the way it works is you've got a 3-second dot, and on top of that you're invulnerable for those 3 seconds, and you also restore 100% of your Ice Armor, and finally you will chill and deep freeze enemies. So what you want to do is cast this. Any enemies you don't defeat will be frozen, and then you follow up with a Shatter move on them. It does have quite a long cooldown of 45 seconds, but it really is a nice looking skill. But next up, let's check out his ultimate skill. For the ultimate we have a skill called Age of Iceman. This is pretty great. You initially call in a large snowstorm and this will do a dot twice per second for 8 seconds. Now while that's happening you actually summon in lots of Iceman clones as well, so when they initially come in they will do clone fall damage as they smash in, and then once they're there they'll start doing chillblade damage on top of that. Now each of them would have a 15-second duration, and because they're coming in throughout the duration of this ult you can have a whole ton of them by the time this ult finishes up, and they'll slowly bit by bit start to disappear as the 15-second duration drops off on them. So it's a really great signature. It looks amazing and damage wise it's really pretty great as well, so yeah, I like this one a whole lot. What we'll do next anyway is we've got 3 gameplay videos. The first one will be the range side of things we'll check out, then we'll do melee and summon, but let's have a look at these range skills first. First skill we look at here then for this run through of the shocker terminal is the main spender, and this one would be icicles. So with this particular skill you actually gain 25% bonus damage for 5 seconds after you shatter an enemy. Now on the subject of that we'll start to look at the freeze and shatter mechanic now. So we start off by looking at Ice Slick. So this is a large AoE skill and you'll do the dot for 6 seconds on top of vulnerability. Now this will actually deep freeze enemies, and that's for 2 seconds, increased to 4 seconds if the enemy was chilled prior to being frozen. It will also restore 25% of your max ice armour. Now the next skill we look at, this is another one that can actually freeze the enemy. This is called Flash Freeze. So if you're running a summon build you can also use this to direct your ice golems and clones to attack a particular target. But with this you have the initial damage packet. It provides a whopping 200% vulnerability for the next enemy that you actually shatter, so you want to use this and then follow up with your hardest hitting shatter skill and you'll do a huge amount of damage. This will also restore a portion of your ice armour. It's 25% it restores, and you can see down the bottom it's got the deep freeze tag for 2 seconds or 4 seconds if the enemy's been chilled. Now for the shatter skills we have Frozen Lance, which is the first one we look at. So you've got the initial damage packet. It has a 100% chance to critically hit, and if the enemy is frozen you'll get the shatter effect, which does an additional damage, so it's roughly just over 50% of the damage that the initial actual skill is doing. So that can be really nice if you can freeze the enemy before using this particular skill. For the next skill we have another one that has the shatter effect, and this is Hail Drop. So you've got the initial damage packet. This will actually do a weaken to the enemies for 6 seconds, and you can see down the bottom of the tooltip you've got the shatter damage there as well. The final skill we look at, and one we just fired off a moment ago there, is Ice Beam. So this is great for taking out trash. It works as a dot, it gains a bonus based on your attack speed, and it will also chill the enemy, so that slows them down, but the chill would mean if you then follow up with the freeze doubles the duration. But let's fire off all these skills on Shocker. We can see a huge amount of his health go down there when we used the freeze and followed it up with the shatter. There we go, down. So what we'll look at next will be possibly my favourite build out of the 3, and this will be the melee skills that we'll check out. First skill we look at here is the main melee spender, and this is Frozen Blades, and we gain this through choosing an actual melee talent. So with this it will restore 5% of your maximum ice armour on hit. It also gains a 25% damage for 5 seconds after you shatter an enemy, and it will also chill an enemy. Now on top of that it makes it feel like you're playing the T-1000 from Terminator 2, which is awesome. So next skill enemy is Frost Nova. This is another fantastic one. So you get this through talents. It's normally a range skill, but you can change it to become Frost Nova. So with this, you'll cast it and you'll freeze the enemies. Enemies will take a bonus 200% extra damage from your next shatter power. It restores 25% of your max ice armour, and it actually freezes the enemy over a huge area as well. Now the skill that you would normally follow this up with would be a shatter skill, and the one we'll look at next will be our crash down, which is Glacial Slam. So this will do the initial damage packet. You have the weaken, and you have the shatter as well, so it's great to run up to the enemy, freeze them with Frost Nova, jump up and slam down and smash them. It just feels great to do that. Now another shatter skill we have to look at would be Arctic Wave. So this is an almost cone one, the area that it covers. So you've got the initial damage packet, and you can see you've got the additional bonus damage if the enemy's frozen when you use it on them as well. For the next skill we have another one that has the shatter effects, and this one we can spam a bit more often because it has charges. So this is Icy Arsenal, where you'll turn your fists into large ice axes, which is pretty great. So you have the damage packet, you have a cooldown of 4 seconds, but you can have free charges as well, so you can spam this should you be in a situation where you can freeze the enemies quickly. You can then quickly shatter them. Now final skill, it's a utility one, and this one's called Ice Block. So you cover yourself in ice, you'll be invulnerable for 1.5 seconds, you regenerate 2800 health per second, and you actually restore 100% of your max ice armour. Now it has a really high cooldown of 30 seconds, so it's a skill that I wouldn't personally use it myself because bar space can be tight and I don't feel that it has enough uptime on it, but once harder content comes out it could certainly be useful for those moments when you're in a lot of trouble. It could be your, excuse my language, but it could be your oh shit button that you could press when you need it. So that's melee covered. So what we'll have a look at next will be the summon skills, and these are pretty great. Now with Iceman having as many skills as he does, we actually have one more range one to look at here, and this would be Chillblain. So this is a main skill that you can use. It is tagged as basic. When you're firing it off, you'll restore 5% of your max ice armour on hit, and it will chill the enemy as well. Now for the summons, we have Ice Golem. So if you were to use this without talents, you would summon one Ice Golem. If you use it with talents, you can summon 3, and you can see them on screen at the moment. Now if you actually cast this skill when your Ice Golems have already been summoned, then what they'll do is a sub-zero smash damage, so they will throw a large snowball to the area that you're currently aiming at. On top of this, they will be doing snowball damage as they're fighting normally, and they have a snow aura that pulses and does additional damage. We then have Frozen Orb, so with this particular one, this will restore 25% of your max ice armour. It's got a low cooldown of 4 seconds, and you've got 2 charges. Now it doesn't show on the tooltip, but you can set this up through talent so that it actually gains a benefit from the summon tag and any summon damage you have. And on top of that, rather than the Frozen Orb going all the way across the screen, you can fire it off to a particular area, so that works great with the summon build. Now next skill we look at is another one that works great with the summon build, but this is just the regular tooltip we're looking at. This is Work of Art, so you'll summon a large Iceman essentially with his thumbs up, which is pretty great looking, and this will taunt and immobilise the enemies, and then it will finally shake and explode. And there's a little bit of trivia. When Iceman first came to Test Centre on PC, this was originally his signature, and it is nice, but I don't think it's nice enough to be an actual 45-second signature skill. There we go, we can see that just there. So through talents you can set this up so it also gains a bonus from the summon damage tag. The next skill we look at is a utility one. I've just fired it off there so you can see it. It's Glacial Wall, so this will stop enemy projectiles, and it also blocks enemy path. And now as you notice, it will block your summons, so just be wary of that. But I do feel that skills like this, once the harder content comes out, could be really great. You create a choke point, enemies can't get by, and then you start whittling down with all your range skills. On the subject of range skills, we have one more to look at. This is Snowblower. It will do a damage dot when you hold it down for 4 times per second, gains a bonus from your attack speed, and on top of that it will chill the enemy as well. So there we go, that was good timing to finish up there. I hope you did enjoy this. Iceman is a fantastic hero, I highly recommend him. As you can see, he's got a ton of skills, so really don't overlook him, give him a shot. I think you'll be surprised and enjoy him. So once again, anyway, thanks for tuning in for another one of these videos, and I'll see you all again soon.